Did you know that big tobacco basically created ultra processed foods that we eat today? I don't know if anyone else listened to the daily podcast from the New York Times. I like to listen to it from time to time. They're usually pretty short, and today they were talking about um, ultra processed foods. This isn't new or groundbreaking. I have known that ultra processed foods are not healthy for you. And I've been trying to avoid it, but of course you can't avoid all of it. I mean, listening to the podcast, it's even in bread, like sliced bread. I mean, come on, I'm not making bread at home. I try very hard to do whole foods and just cook as much as I can. I mean, I love to go out to restaurants, and I know that's bad. I've cut down on that as well. But this podcast was super disturbing because I always just assumed that it was these food companies producing these ultra processed foods, and I never knew the history behind it. So in the 80s, big tobacco companies bought up the major food production companies like Kraft, Nabisco. I mean, basically, Philip Morris and R.J. Reynolds owned all the ultra processed foods that we're seeing in all the grocery stores and are eating. I mean, mac and cheese, Lunchables, Oreo cookies. So this is from a Washington Post article from last year, and I must have missed it. And I just never knew that it was this crazy that the tobacco company really controls our food too. And they started making all our food hyper palatable that contains so much fat, sodium, sugars, additives that really drive addiction. And of course, they would know about addiction, right? So then at first it was just companies like Kraft and Nabisco, I mean, the largest players in the market. But then all the smaller players just followed their lead too. How are you going to compete against addiction, right? So now that just created this whole industry of foods that are super processed, and it's prevalent in everything. You could be really mindful, and it would be really hard to get away from it without making everything from scratch by yourself. And like, if you're like me, I hate cooking. I cannot. But there's lots of ways you can avoid super processed foods. I do try to do a lot of it in my daily life, and I'll be sharing more here. But I'd like to hear your thoughts and what else you know about this and what you're doing to stay away from this super palatable foods and funding the tobacco industry. Leave your comments. I'd love to hear it.